What's up, everyone? Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Emergency Pod. The Rockies actually did something, and it's an emergency pod brought to you by New Built Construction. When that home emergency hits, New Built Restoration and Construction will be there at nubilt.com or 720-903-4254. Let them know that DNVR sent you. Spencer, the Rockies are no longer the only team in Major League Baseball that haven't signed someone. That solely belongs to the Boston Red Sox. The Rockies actually did something, baby. I feel like we willed this into existence. They signed 34-year-old starting pitcher Michael Lorenzen to a deal. And I'm going to go with the fact that I think they listened to us from our show just a couple days ago.
They saw the show. They knew we needed that emergency pod, and they gave it to us. And you know what I didn't realize? Like, obviously we pay attention to the Rockies and we pay attention to baseball this time of year, but it's pretty dead, right? And looking at like Jeff Passan's tweet of the Rockies signing this guy, all of the Yankees fans, the Mets fans, the Red Sox fans, like crashing out because the Rockies are actually signing someone and they're not, just gave me a little bit of excitement. Gave me a little bit of
juice. A little bit of juice.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's funny because on a day where we're celebrating the launch of Sports Over Everything, I'm sitting there making dinner. I'm sure you were hanging out with your kids, and we both get this a notification on our phone. And if we're being completely real, Michael Lorenzen is not the biggest free agent signing the Rockies have ever done. It's similar in I think level to what we saw last year when the Rockies signed Thairo Estrada. But the Rockies did something, and you and I immediately texted each other like, we got to do an emergency pod. Like, just the fact that they had their first signing, the first signing of the new era, Paul DePodesta and company. And so I think before we even dive into the actual specifics on who Michael Lorenzen is, the type of player he is, the type of pitcher he is, what you can expect to see from him, I think the first thing that stood out to me before I had even done any research on him whatsoever is this is going to tell us a lot about, I think, what the vision of this new front office is for the future of pitching in Colorado. And it's one guy, so it's obviously it's not, it's not a huge sample size, but this is the first and maybe one of the only free agents that I expect the Rockies to actually sign this offseason. And Paul DePodesta talked about the importance of, really kind of bringing in a couple veteran starting pitchers to help that starting pitcher core. So I think if nothing else, this is going to tell us a lot about what they think can work at Coors Field, what they think can work with the Rockies. And we can start to put together a picture of what this pitching philosophy is going to look like here in the future.
Yeah, and it's like we talked about, the first signing is going to signify, or hopefully signify, and just give us a little bit of an idea of what they're looking at, like what kind of player are they looking at, whether it be a pitcher, and they mentioned pitcher a million times when they were talking about where they needed to go to sign. Because, we talked about first base the other day on the show, maybe third base. Do you need to add a second baseman, an MLB level second baseman? But starting pitcher was always that spot that you felt like, number one, there's a lot of guys out there. And this is like as Rockies as it gets in terms of, it's a 1-year deal, $8 million, a player option for next year. And you just see how it goes. It's like you tweeted, I believe, it's like Jimmy Herget. You see how it goes. You sign him. If it goes well, you pick up the player option and he starts for you again next year. But the reality of the situation is, which we've said multiple times on the show as well, is they don't want anyone to just be starting in or playing at the MLB level just because they're there and because no one else is better than them. And this just pushed a McCade Brown or a Tanner Gordon or someone, not only push their competition, but also now they start the year in AAA. And we didn't think that they would actually go into the season with the same starting five that we basically had yesterday if we had to field a roster yesterday. But at the same time, this now pushes everybody down. Like one of my friends that's a Rockies fan was like, he's a good 4 or 5 starter. And I was like, for the Rockies, he's probably a 2. He's probably your 2 or 3. Like, that's just the reality of the situation where they're at. So he's going to start he's going to be the second or third guy off the bench, if you will, and starting for the Rockies that first series in Miami, provided everything goes well in spring training and he stays healthy. Like, that's the reality of the situation. And you get him at $8 million, which is, we talked, they're not getting Franmir Valdez. They're not getting any of these guys at 17 to 20, but a guy at a 1-year, $8 million deal with a club option for 27, it screams perfect deal. Exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, I agree completely. I do think the biggest thing that stands out to me about Michael Lorenzen and what he brings to the table for the Rockies is he's a cheap option for a guy who's going to eat a ton of innings, right? The Rockies don't need to go get underneath any more big, huge contracts right now. You're not close to being a competitive team. We were talking about that. We've been talking about that for a long time, but I was talking about that earlier today on the Denver Sports Podcast. Rockies have years before they're even close to being competitive. So you don't want to put all your chips in too early and get underneath some kind of dicey contracts that end up costing you a lot down the road. That's what they're actually trying to get out from under with contracts to Antonio Senzatella. They had German Marquez on the books last year. Even Kyle Freeland has a more pitcher-friendly deal than team-friendly deal. This is a relatively team-friendly deal for a guy who's going to eat a ton of innings. He pitched 142 innings last year. I think it was like 141.2 or something like that. And for comparison, Kyle Freeland pitched 141 innings, and he had the most innings pitched by any of the Rockies' starting pitchers. So just by that metric alone, if he stays healthy the whole year, he's going to eat up a bulk of those innings. And like you said, Spencer, if nothing else, he's a veteran who brings you some experience. He's pitched in the playoffs. He's been around the league a while. He brings the experience that you feel more confident using a guy like that than you do with Bradley Blaylock, right? I know that hurts my heart to say as someone who thought Bradley Blaylock was going to be something bigger, but the reality is you probably don't want to be seeing a lot more of Bradley Blaylock at this point. If you're a Rockies fan, you want to be seeing more of Tanner Gordon. You want to be seeing more of McCade Brown, at least to where we get more information on what they're going to progress to. But this is a good veteran that's going to kind of fill in with Kyle Freeland and just eat up a boatload of innings.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a guy that I think one of the comments on your tweet from one of our loyal pod listeners and show viewers said that he has a ton, it's like 6 or 7 pitch mix, meaning you're going to get to see a lot of different pitches. And he leans into the sinker, which is, it seems just straight. It's very straight across the board. Hey, Coors Field, you can hit a lot of home runs there. You don't want to get the ball in the air, keep the ball on the ground. But it's the actual reality of what he throws, and he's really good at throwing it. And he doesn't walk guys, which is it'll be a warm welcome to see a starting pitcher that doesn't put a ton of guys on base and lead off walks. We know what those cause. And it's exciting. It's exciting for them to go get a guy that has been around the league. He's got some insane info. Like I'll hit you with a crazy Michael Lorenzen stat. He is one of only 2 players ever to win a game as a starter, hit a home run, and play in the field. Who is the other guy that he shares that with?
Shohei Ohtani.
Babe Ruth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he played in the field too. That was the little caveat there. Like, well, I'm sure we can get into his bat a little bit just for funsies because he's not going to hit here, but it's insane how good of a hitter he is for being a pitcher. And he's the original Shohei Ohtani before Shohei Ohtani became. He's the Rocky Shohei Ohtani now.
Yeah, he's Shohei Ohtani 1.0. Yeah, no, he's got some pretty good stuff. Felix asked in the chat, what's the grade on this signing? Just from sheer reaction, knowing kind of the surface level of his numbers and what the Rockies need in the context of right here, right now, I'd say a B, a pretty solid B. You're not in the A-Tech category because I don't think they're taking a huge risk financially with a guy, who I think, I don't know, would open some eyeballs a little bit more. But this fits the reality of where the Rockies are right now. He's a solid veteran starter with a lot of experience. He's going to be able to help some of the young guys out. I like you said, everything on his stat list feels reasonable. There's nothing there that's like overly concerning. If we're being honest, the only thing that's overly concerning if you call this concerning, is he has a 9.24 ERA at Coors Field. But who doesn't, right? I mean, Paul Skeens has a 10 ERA at Coors Field. So
Yeah, he's better than Paul Skeens. Is that what you're telling me?
yeah,
Coors
that's
Field?
exactly what I'm telling you. No, so I mean, he's got a high ground ball rate, pitches to contact, low walk rate, like Spencer mentioned. Like, it, by all metrics, I think this is a very safe and secure first overall move. And this feels like a Paul DePodesta move. It feels like a Moneyball move. It's not a guy who's going to fill the stands by any means, but he's a guy that, is just going to do the fundamentals. And the Rockies historically need guys that just do the bare minimum, the fundamentals, right? And it feels like that's what this guy brings. So I'm happy with it. I feel like this is a great first move by this new front office, this new Rockies era.
Yeah, it's a sign of. I mean, this guy was we don't expect him to be this, but this guy was an all-star in 2023. Also pitched a no-hitter in 2023. So now your take of a no-hit, a Rockies pitcher throwing a no-hitter or a complete game, I should say, in 2026 goes up substantially with Michael Lorenzen on the mound. But no, it's a perfect Rocky signing. Like, we're not coming on here and saying he's going to win 20 games this year and be in the Cy Young conversation. But it's also a very much step up from, they signed, I don't even remember the guy's name, but they signed a guy late last night as well. Some guy that didn't even pitch in the majors last year. And those are the moves where you're like, yeah, you're not getting excited about that. Could he be a player on the field for the Rockies this year? Sure. But this guy's legitimately coming in here and going to start every 5 days for you. Maybe even hit a little bit. You never know what they're thinking with him, but super versatile pitch mix and just a veteran pitcher that, can eat, like you said, eat some innings. He's pitched a ton of innings the last 4 or 5 years, been super durable and consistent. And that's what they need. And that, if you look at the Rockies rotation, he's right behind Kyle Freeland. He's the only pitcher that's not, what he is. He's 34 years old. He's pitched in the majors. He's drafted in 2013. Like, what he is at this point. And that's enough to get excited for the fact that they went out and got a starting pitcher that is going to be in your rotation, that what he is, versus question marks. We have so many question marks that it's nice to have a period.
Yeah. You know what the X factor of all of this is? That I feel like a lot of people, when you sign someone like this, you tend to go straight to the stats, understandably, right? I mean, I'm the same way. You go to the stats, you do all this research on who this player is and what he's done, and you say, okay, last year he had a 4.24 ERA. Well, that's better than any of the Rockies, or right around what I think Kyle Freeland was last year, if I remember correctly. But his numbers don't blow you away. But I think the X factor in all of this situation, and for any pitcher that the Rockies sign now, is the Rockies have a brand new pitching staff. They have a brand new pitching staff of coaches. I mean, a brand new organizational philosophy on pitching, where I feel so much more confident about signing free agent pitchers, relievers, bullpen guys, closers. It doesn't matter who it is, someone who's going to go out there on the mound. And I have this renowned confidence that, hey, I'm curious what this new pitching coach, these new pitching coaches can do with this guy. Right? You've got Matt Daniels now. You've got Alon Leichman. You've got all 4 of their pitching coaches. I'm forgetting the last 2's names. But you just have this new breadth of information that you can provide to these guys. And so I don't know if that's also a selling point. I'm sure it is, when you're going out and trying to sign a pitcher free agent, which we know how hard that is to do here in Colorado. It's almost impossible to sign a good pitching free agent here to play for the Rockies. But I'm just curious to see how this pitching staff handles Lorenzen, handles Chase Dolander, handles anyone that's going to be in that pitching rotation.
Yeah, it's all new. Everything is new from the way, like, these pitchers aren't going to necessarily completely change and morph, but there is a new philosophy and a new way of doing things around pitching at Coors Field and pitching on the road, or just pitching in general from this organization. So everybody kind of gets, we talked about how great of a fresh start Warren Schaefer is getting, being the manager, having a whole new front office, whether it's the same players on the roster or not. Completely different philosophy can change the way that pitchers see Coors Field and attack Coors Field. And Kyle Freeland's had some success here. I'm sure Lorenzen and Kyle Freeland will become semi-close, because Lorenzen's going to be also that guy that is, he's a little older than Kyle Freeland, been around a little bit longer, but Kyle Freeland's also the, Mr. Rocky now, and he's been here and pitched at Coors Field. So I'm sure they can bounce ideas off each other and then bounce ideas off of, the pitching coaches and the bullpen coach and the director of pitching, all of these guys that have their own certain philosophies on how to be as successful as you can be at Coors Field, because we know it's a giant burden on pitchers, and it always has been, and it always will be. But this is why you sign a Michael Lorenzen for $8 million, and you say, hey, we're paying you $8 million, go out there, and if you have a 4 to 5 ERA, great. If you start, 30, 35 games, perfect. Awesome. We love that. That's what we're looking for right now. We're not looking for a guy that's in the Cy Young conversation. We're not looking for a guy that we can spend $25 to $30 million a year on.
Yeah. I've also been seeing a couple people from other fan bases kind of chiming in on Twitter and talking about how, like, I hesitate to say good of a person he is, but how good of a teammate he is. And, as much as we didn't like seeing Kyle Farmer playing out there on the field last year, there was something to be said about the teammates. Hunter Goodman said it on our show, literally, that, like, if there's one guy in the clubhouse that, that everyone gets along with, it's like the leader in the clubhouse, he was like, it's Kyle Farmer, right? So I don't know enough about Lorenzen, but the things that I've just seen people saying on Twitter and people, fans who have watched him play and that kind of stuff, is that he seems like a really fun guy to be around. He's great with his teammates. He's great with the fans, great with the media. So you just can't go wrong with a guy like that, especially a veteran that you're bringing in. By no means do I expect this to be a long-term situation, right? He's a 1-year inning eater. That's the reality of what this is. But I think like I said, for the first move of the Paul DePodesta era, it's good. It's pretty good. And you didn't break the bank, because I think that's the other part of this is I don't think the Rockies are really going to make any big waves this year. And we talked about it if you guys heard our show on Tuesday. The Rockies aren't going out. As much as we'd love for them to sign Luis Ariz, and I'd love for them to prove me wrong, they're not going to do it. So you're going to see the Michael Lorenzens getting signed, and maybe we might see someone a little bit more with a little more notoriety than Michael. But I think for the most part, this is going to be par for the course, and I'm okay with that. We have a lot of other things to look at this year. This is a year of evaluation, and now you have brought in a little bit more stability in that rotation that you can lean on. So I'm excited to see it. So from your perspective, who do you think he pushes out of that starting rotation? Because right now it's Freeland, Dolander, you've got McCade, you've got Tanner Gordon, maybe Ryan Feltner. Blaylock's kind of on the edge there. But Michael Lorenzen now getting added into that. Who does he push?
I think the way I see it right now is I see Freeland, Lorenzen, Feltner, Freeland, Lorenzen, Feltner, Tanner Gordon, and probably Chase Dolander. So that's your 5 right there. Like if the Rockies had to play a 5-game series against the Dodgers tomorrow, that would be the 5 guys that you would start, provided they're all healthy, in order, or not necessarily in order, but I think it's somewhere like Freeland, Lorenzen, Dolander, Gordon, and then Feltner. But all those guys really, like, it's kind of just the Rockies in general. All of those guys are really 3 to 4s, but you have to, start somebody the first day of the year. You got to start somebody the second day of the year. So it's a lot of good 3 to 4s, but we'll see, there's high ceiling on Dolander. Lorenzen's very high floor, low ceiling guy, but you know what you're going to get from him. And kind of the same with Freeland. And then you got your wild cards in Feltner. When he's healthy, he's got a high ceiling. And then Tanner Gordon was the best starter we had last year for a good bit of the year. So,
Tanner Gordon, man.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, those 5 right now, I mean, it's 4 righties and 1 lefty. So don't love that, but it's a start. It's a start. And like you said, they don't have to break the bank, because what the Rockies are really doing right now is they're trying to get rid of bad contracts, whether it's, we bring this guy's name up like every pod, and I don't mean to, but Chris Bryant, obviously terrible contract that you're dealing with. Low key, Antonio Senzatella is a terrible contract that you're dealing with. You're paying
not low key, very high key.
You're paying it, but and he's now in your long relief guy. So you're paying your long relief guy $12 million. I mean, imagine what they would have got on the free agent market for $12 million if they had that to spend and didn't have Antonio Senzatella. So I think while we try as Rockies fans to want, we want on the offseason, we want the Arise, we want I saw a comment, Reese Hoskins, we want those guys that let's let them clear out some of these worst deals and sign these safer deals for now until you figure out, because like Lorenzen will be 36 at the end, or 35 at the end of this contract. If they pick up his club option, he'll be 36. You're not going to sign him to a 6-year deal after that, or 5-year deal for, $40-50 million. That's not the reality of the situation. But you're not signing a deal where he may be 35 and you're paying him $12 million, and then he's so bad he becomes your bullpen guy, innings eater, like Antonio Senzatella. So it's a perfect bridge deal. And it's a veteran that, I actually was looking at his Instagram after the signing, and he does like pitching philosophies. And his last post was, talking about throwing an 0-0 slider down in the count. He's like, it may look good, but you need to learn when to use that, and when, the count favors you, and when to use a slider at that time. And so maybe that gets me thinking maybe he's a little bit more into the coach. Like maybe he didn't think he'd sign a deal this year and he was going to go be a coach, a pitching coach. So that, while that's not ideal for the product on the field, we've said it time and time again, we're not all that worried about the product on the field. And if you get a veteran in here that can still pitch, and he showed he can. I mean, last year if he would have been a Rockies pitcher, he'd been the best one we had as a starter. He's already into kind of the coaching and teaching realm, which will be super helpful for a lot of these young guys that they have a lot of, we think they have a lot of potential, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I saw a comment. This was from Oak Tree Status, a definite must follow for Rockies fans, but he had responded with this. He said, Rockies need guys to throw innings. Lorenzen can do that. It probably won't be pretty. And it's a pretty good way of putting it, right? I mean, you just said it. The ceiling is low, but the floor is also pretty high, right? You kind of know what you're going to get for him. He's probably not going to go out there and have a 2.5 ERA by any means, but he's going to eat up a ton of innings. I think you've got 3 guarantees in your starting rotation right now. You have, of course, Kyle Freeland, Michael Lorenzen now, and Chase Dollander. Dollander, unless he falls out of the rotation by just not pitching well during the regular season, he's got to have a spot in the rotation, especially with this new pitching staff. The Rockies have all these new coaches that are going to be at the big league level. So it does Chase Dollander no good to start the season in AAA. You need him working with this new core of pitching coaches. But beyond those 3 guys, between McCade Brown, and even Tanner Gordon, and then of course Bradley Blaylock, Ryan Feltner thrown in there as well, it's going to come down to spring training. I mean, it's going to be a competition of who shows up in spring training, because I think aside from maybe Bradley Blaylock, those 3 guys, Ryan Feltner, McCade Brown, and Tanner Gordon, are all in kind of the same group of talent. They've all shown us bits and pieces of being pretty good and looking like a big league pitcher. And they've also shown us pieces of not looking like that. And so I think spring training is going to really decide who ends up being the last 2 guys in the rotation for the Rockies. But it's nice to have at least the top 3 figured out, because I think coming into today, you only had 2. You only had Freeland and Chase Dollander. Now you've got a 3rd, and that's better than where we were just 3 hours ago.
Yeah, well, in this comment, I was going to kind of ask you this. Does this signify, do you think that they are done with the pitching part of it? Let's just focus on the rotation. Do you think they're done, or do you think there is one other guy where basically it's a Michael Lorenzen level signing, where then it pushes Dollander to the 4th spot, and there's only a true competition really out of spring training for 1 spot? And then it creates even more competition between the Feltners, the Blaylocks, the Tanner Gordons, etc. Because as long as we waited for this one, it feels like now that the floodgates are going to open and they're just going to fill out their roster and sign all these guys within moments, because I believe now their 40-man is full now that they've signed Michael Lorenzen, because when they signed the pitcher this morning or last night, it was 39th guy. So now they have a 40-man full roster. But to me, this move can be repeated. Essentially, you sign another guy for 1 year, $6 to $8 million, and he becomes one of your starters starting the season. I think from the talks with DePodesta and Warren Schaefer in winter meetings, it felt like it wasn't starter, it was starters. So this is one, but do you think there's another one on the way, or do you think this is it for the pitching part of it?
For the pitching part of it, I think this is it. I think the Rockies are working within a limited budget this year because they're signing all these, they're hiring all these new coaches, they're revamping the organization. I mean, it can be expensive to go and hire a president of baseball operations and a GM and an assistant GM and all these other staff and organizational pieces. And you're still dealing with a ton of old contracts like Chris Bryant, like Senzatella, like Freeland, all of that kind of thing. I think they're probably done on the pitcher side of things. But I do think if they're talking about starters, first base is still wide open. And we've been talking about that for a long time. Now, I don't know if the first base move, if they end up making a move to sign a free agent at first base, is going to be as big as we want it to be. I think it'll end up being a similar like Tyro Estrada / maybe even Orlando Arcia kind of signing at first base. We all know we'd love the Paul Goldschmidts, the Luis Ariz, the Reese Hoskins, right? Like we know what we would want, but I think if there's another move at this point, it comes at first base, and I think it just depends on if the deal materializes in the way that they want. If you read, I don't remember if it was Harding's article or if it was Patrick Saunders. I think it was Saunders' article with his conversation with Paul DePodesta. I think Paul was saying something along the lines of, there's a lot of times that deals don't work out. There are more times that deals don't work out behind the scenes that fans just don't even know about, right? Like we're on the phone all the time, and 75% of the time or 80% of the time, these deals just don't go anywhere. There's some disagreement between the teams or the players, and it just doesn't materialize. And so I think the stars have to align for the Rockies to find not only a good fit from the player's perspective, but also financially. And I don't think it's the Rockies being cheap. I just think they're starting to rebuild. You don't need to go out and be as expensive as possible. You don't need to be the Dodgers right now. You got to start rebuilding with what you have. But I do think I don't think this is the last free agent that we see signed. I just think it might be the last free agent pitcher that we see signed.
Yeah, and now you feel like at least you've created competition at you've created competition at 2 starting spots as of right now, provided all the guys that you think are on the roster are healthy, versus basically 3 and maybe 4 if Dolander's not what you think he is. So like because Kyle Freeland, whether he's good or not, he's going to be in your starting rotation starting the year. So now it just feels like it pushes everybody down, creates a little bit more competition in spring training, which is like what, a week, like 6 weeks away. There's an actual baseball game in 60
February
days
19th,
or something like that. And yeah, and there's a spring training game. Yeah, for like 40 days, 45 days. So it's insane to think about that. It's so quick, but this is a good move. And see, like I said earlier, seeing all the Yankees fans crash out and Mets fans because their teams aren't doing anything. There's still a lot of guys left out there, but the Rockies have made a move for a major league player, hence us doing this emergency pod, which is all I wanted. That's all I could ask for Christmas. Santa came like 10 days late, but it's fine.
The fact that the Rockies aren't the last team to sign a free agent is nice in my book, right? It's a breath of fresh air. We weren't last on the list, but we're coming up to about 30 minutes here on our emergency pod, the new built emergency pod, and I think for now we're gonna probably put a pin in it because I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say come next week. But we just wanted to get our initial reactions, our initial thoughts out there on the record for you guys. This is fun. It's nice to see a signing that gives us something to actually talk about. We were talking on Tuesday, and I'm like sitting there saying, okay, if we aren't getting guests on the show, I'm like, we're going to have to start getting creative on some of these topics until we get some news. So now we got some damn news, man, and I'm pumped up.
Yeah, love to see it. Something's coming. Like something happened. Something happened that we'll get to see on the field. And I think that's what really gets the fans hyped up. Like as cool as it is to say, oh, they've signed, they have a new president of baseball operations, GM, assistant GM, pitching coach, pitching director, blah, 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 blah. None of that stuff you get to see on the field. And so while it's important and we know the importance of it, and true Rockies fans or baseball diehards that want the Rockies to turn the organization around have to know it's important, this stuff is actually surface level. This guy is going to pitch in Miami in, a month and a half at the end of March, essentially. So it's exciting, or 2.5 months. That's bad math, but you get the point.
It's tangible. It's tangible. You can taste it, man. You can taste it. Well, speaking of tasting it, I'm pretty sure my meatballs that I were cooking before this have burned, and my pregnant wife probably won't be too happy about that. So I got to go salvage my dinner for the night. But thank you guys for watching.
Enjoy that. I'm still on the 72-hour fast, and I want to kill myself. I've only had water for like the last 48 hours.
That's insane. 72-hour fast, you're just chugging some bone broth and talking Rockies.
Burnt meatballs actually sound fire, to be honest.
What a sicko. What a sicko. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you guys on Tuesday right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.